Okay. All right. So this week's Parsha is Parshas Pinchas, and we want to start a little bit at the end of last week's Parsha to understand a little bit about Parshas Pinchas. So the end of last week's Parsha is as follows. So we know that Balak hired Bilam to curse Klal Yisrael, and he saw that he could not, it wasn't working. And every time he tried to curse Klal Yisrael, he ended up giving them a bracha. So at the end, he came up with an idea, and the idea was that I can't curse Klal Yisrael. I'm going to get them to sin. And the daughters of Moab and the daughters of Midian came down. It's a whole long story. We've spoken about it in the years past. They started selling silks, and there were old ladies outside, so the men thought that everything would be okay, would be tzniustik, and they ended up falling, and they ended up being mizana. They ended up doing immoral acts with these women. And one of the heads of the tribe of Shimon, he himself was being mizana, was doing an immoral act. His name was Zimri ben Saloi. He was the Nasi, the head of the Shevet Shimon, and the Isha was the Midianist princess, and her name was Kozbi Bas Tzur. But in last week's Parsha, at the end of Parashat Balak, it doesn't tell us the name. It says the following. It says, V'hinei ish mibnei Yisrael, there was a Jew. He came, and he brought to his brothers, to Klal Yisrael, this princess, this non-Jewish princess, to do immoral acts with her in front of Moshe. He was very brazen. He did it in front of Moshe, and he did it in front of Klal Yisrael. When Moshe Rabbeinu saw that this rabbi, this head, this Nasi of Shimon, was going to do this sin in front of everybody and make a chil Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu did not know what to do. And Aaron HaKohen did not know what to do. The two of them were standing there. So what did they do? They began to cry. They were standing by the opening of the Mishkan, the Beis HaMikdash at that time, and they were crying. It was the saddest scene that could be, that the head of the tribe of Shimon was about to do this Aveira in front of everybody with this non-Jewish woman. So they were crying. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, and there was a person, his name was Pinchas. His father was Elazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen. Vayakam mitocha Eda. He got up from within the middle of the crowd, of the Eda. Vayikach ramach b'yado, and he took a spear in his hand. Vayavayach ish Yisrael, and he followed this Jew, this Zimri ben Solei, El Akuba, and into the tent. Vayitkar shneim, and he stabbed both of them, as Ish Yisrael, the Jew, as the Isha, and the woman, El Kubasai, in their innards, and he actually held up the spear with them both on it. And the plague that was amongst the Jews were dying because they were being punished for this terrible avera of being with these non-Jewish women. It stopped after he did that. But at that point already, how many people died? Above Esrim Elef, 24,000 men already had died from this terrible plague because they were doing these sins with these non-Jewish women. So we need to take apart a little bit this pasuk. Number one, what does it mean that Vayaka mitocha Eda, that he got up from amongst everybody else? Of course he got up from amongst everybody else, right? If somebody right now in this crowd got up and came forward to the front of the room, I don't have to tell you that she got up from the group. She was sitting in the group and she got up. So of course she got up from the group. Why does the Torah have to tell me, number one, that he got up from mitocha Eda? And then it says, Vayikach remach b'yadoi, that he took a spear. In Parashat Pinchas, it says, in the next pasuk it says in Parashat Balak, that he speared them. He stabbed them. He speared them. So why does that tell me he took a spear? If I tell you that someone cut someone's head off with a sword, I don't have to tell you he took a sword. Of course he took a sword. How else did he kill him with a sword if he didn't take a sword? So why does the Torah have to tell us specifically, Vayikach remach b'yadoi? A very, very important lesson. A lesson that I understand very well. And the lesson over here is that when somebody steps out and he stands up for God, so everybody says right away, oh, look at this Meshugana. You know what I mean? He's not like, you have to have pity, and you have to give them time, and you have to be understanding. And over here, that was the mistake that Moshe and Aaron, as long as they were standing and crying, Jews were dying. 24,000 Jews died. Pinchas understood and he had a different look, which we'll see in a minute what that means. He had a different look at the situation, and he understood that this is not the time to cry, this is not the time to pray, this is the time to take this Jew who was doing this sin publicly in front of everyone and kill him, together with the non-Jew. And he put his life in huge danger because the whole Shevet Shimon, the tribe that he killed their leader, wanted to kill him. But he didn't care, because he saw something else. Everybody saw a Jewish rabbi, the head of a tribe, messing around with a non-Jewish woman in public. So they saw it, and it's terrible, and it's embarrassing, and they're crying. And Pinchas said, you don't understand, there's a lot more to what he's doing. What he's doing is doing Chil Hashem. He is disgracing God, and I see this disgrace. And therefore praying is not enough. I have to remove this disgrace. And therefore he took in his own hands to murder, to kill in cold blood these two, the woman and Zimri. So right away everyone's like, he's a kanoi, I don't know how to say that in English exactly, a zealot, he's one of these crazy guys, you know, he's an extremist. That's the word. Pinchas is an extremist. So the Torah tells us, wrong. Wrong. He wasn't an extremist. Pinchas got up from Kol Hadas B'nai Yisrael. He was like everybody else. He was a regular, quiet, nice, sweet Jewish man. He wasn't a guy, an extremist that was looking to find the Jew that was making a mistake and take him out. So the pasuk specifically tells us he wasn't one of these guys running around trying to find Jews that were sinning. But he was from a Kol Hadas B'nai Yisrael. He was from the regular Jews. Not only that, but that he wasn't a soldier or tznius police looking to attack every kid that's walking down the hall that's not dressed exactly perfect. He was a regular man. But he had to go and get the spear. He wasn't. There's two kinds of people. There's the one that's walking around with a spear in their hand, looking for someone to spear. That's the zealot. That's the kanoi. That's the radical. In other words, I'm looking for a Jew that I can really let him have it. I walk around shul looking for someone who has their phone on. So that's the guy that walks around and he's got a spear in his hand. So now he just has to find someone to stick it into. So the Torah, no, he had nothing in his hand. He had to go find the spear. This wasn't a murderer. This guy wasn't a killer. He wasn't a tznius police. He was one of the normal people. And he said, oh my God, look at this disgrace that's happening to Hashem. I can't stand by. Where are the spears? There was nothing in his hand. He had to go and get the spear. That's who Pinchas was. He wasn't some radical Jew. He was a regular sweetheart. But he could not watch what was being done to Hashem. He could not watch it. It bothered him. And therefore he had to go look for the spear. And it says that he found the spear that was in two parts. It had of course the head, which was sharp, and he had to take that part off and put it in his pocket. And he took the stick and he made believe it was a walking stick, because Shevet Shimon would have killed him. He would have killed him. They would have never let him get with a spear close to their leader. So he had to make believe. He had to go through this whole thing. He said, but Klal Yisrael has to see that you cannot disgrace HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But he wasn't, and therefore what was his reward? His reward in this week's parasha for what he did, as it says, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, Heishiv es chamasi. He took back my anger, said Hashem. Me'al b'nei Yisrael. I was angry at them. Bekana is kanasi b'soicham. B'loi chilisi, I'm going to destroy all of them. If he wouldn't have done this, Moshe Rabbeinu would have been crying. He would have had reason to cry, because I would have destroyed the whole Klal Yisrael. I wouldn't have stopped, said Hashem. Therefore, Hineni Noisin Lei is Brisi Shalom. Hashem's reward to Pinchas was a convent of Shalom. What do you mean of Shalom? He murdered a guy. So if you're going to tell me that his greatness was that he stood up and he was a Gibor and he stood up for Hashem, so what should his reward be? That his children are going to become Giborim. They're going to become soldiers of Hashem. They're going to become giants. They're going to become strong. Not the reward for murdering, for killing somebody is to become peaceful? What's the Midah Keneged Midah over here? What's Brisi Shalom mean? So Chazal says that when it says Vayikach Roimach B'Yadai, that he took a spear in his hands, take the word Roimach and change it to Ramach, 248. We know that a person has 248 limbs, organs. So he took Vayikach Roimach B'Yadai, he took his life in his own hands. He took his 248 organs in his own hands. He took his life in his own hands because he was going up against a whole Shevet, a whole tribe of Shimon. And we know that it says in the Zohar that when Hashem created the human being, he was created to last forever. He was never supposed to die until we ate from the Eitz Hadas. So we were created as human beings, as machines that could live forever. Now we're not that at all. One little teeny little cell that's a little bit off, and the person's done. We're not that at all today. So what happened? So it says that when Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas, the four things that the human being was created, Hashem created us from air, from wind, from fire, that's the temperature in your body, from the dust of the earth, that's your skin, right? And water. Earth, and fire, and air, and ruach, and water. And when those four things work together, a person will never die. But when one of them goes off and doesn't work together with the other three, or if all of them go off, then the person will become sick and the person will die. Because Pinchas took his life in his own hands to honor God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's reward was Brisi Shalom, that his air and his fire and his water and his earth would always be in peace with each other. And therefore, Chazal say that Pinchas is Eliyahu. Pinchas is Eliyahu HaNavi. And we know that Eliyahu HaNavi never died. He comes to the bris, he comes to the Pesach. Eliyahu HaNavi will come when Mashiach comes. He will announce the coming of Mashiach. Eliyahu HaNavi never died. Therefore, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen never died. And that was what Hashem gave him. Brisi Shalom. You took your life in your hands for me, for my name. So therefore, your life that you took into your own hands will be forever. And that was the Midah Keneged Midah, why he was given a bracha of Brisi Shalom. So I think it's very important because we learned, I spoke about this a long time ago, in Parashat Vayera, the second look. We talked about that second look, right? That Avraham Avinu, the first Vayera, that when he saw the Malachim, it says Vayitzav, they stood upon him. And then when it says Vayar, the second Vayar in that pasuk, not Vayera, when it says Vayar, the second time, right? So then he ran towards them. He lifted his eyes, Vayar. There were three people standing on him. Vayar, he took a second look, Vayar it's the crossum, and he ran to meet them. If you look in Parashat Pinchas, you will see the same, in the end of Parashat Balak, you will see the exact same thing. Vayar, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. What did he see? It doesn't say in the pasuk what he saw. What did he see? If you're telling me Vayar, then you should tell me what he saw. All it says in the pasuk is Vayar, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen saw something. Doesn't say what. Vayakom, he got up. He got up and he took a sword. He took a spear in his hand and he killed the two of them. But it never says in the pasuk what he saw. Why not? By Avraham Avinu, it doesn't say what he saw either. The second Vayar. The first Vayar says, V'hinei shleisha malachim nitzim olav. The first Vayar in that pasuk says what he saw. He saw three angels were standing upon him. The second Vayar, it doesn't say what he saw. It just says Vayar. He saw something. Vayar it's l'krosam. And he ran to meet them. So the second Vayar doesn't say what he saw by Avraham Avinu. And the Vayar by Pinchas doesn't say what he saw. It just says he saw something, he got up, and he did what he had to do. It doesn't say that he saw the two of them together. It's not what the pasuk tells us. So what is this Vayar? And that's really what I want to talk about tonight. What's this Vayar that Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen didn't have? They stood there, they were crying. They were stuck in the moment. They didn't do anything. Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron HaKohen, they He didn't do anything. They stood there and cried. And this guy, Pinchas, he saw something. He didn't get up, he didn't cry, he didn't daven. He got up, got a spear, and did what he had to do. Same thing by Avraham Avinu. Second Vayar doesn't say what he saw. What did he do? Vayar etzakasam. He saw something, he took an action. Pinchas saw something, he took an action. Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron saw the same thing. They saw this guy doing znus, doing immoral act with a non-Jew. So what's the Vayar that made Pinchas react that Moshe and Aaron did not react? So many weeks ago, probably about 4 months ago, of course I'm not comparing myself to Pinchas, even though I'm a Kayan. Maybe I come from him, I'm not, maybe, very possible. So I was in shul, and I told you this story when it happened. I was in shul in Landau's, and there was a young guy, say he was about 18, maybe 17, 18, who was in shul at the same minyan, standing right in front of the bima. I stand down always by the bima, standing right in front of the Aron HaKodesh. And he was on his phone in the middle of mincha. He was on his phone, and he's talking on his phone in the middle of davening. So this old man walked over to him and said, "Nu, shh, like, go out if you want to talk on the phone in the middle of davening. First of all, talk in the back of the shul. Don't talk in front of the Aron HaKodesh. And if you want to talk, go outside. I'm not telling you can't talk. Go outside and talk." So this old rabbi goes over to him and says, "Nu," and he points to the outside. And this guy just totally ignores him, and he keees talking. And the rabbi is like, "Nu," and he's making enough noise like the whole shul is looking, right? And this guy's like, get out of here. He may have even given him a gesture that wasn't very clean. He's like, "Get out of here. I'll do whatever I want." Now, I was standing at the bima. So I come from a hockey background, so it's not so easy to control myself. But I've been working for 30 years, 40 years to control myself, because I had a crazy temper as a kid. Crazy. You said the wrong word, I turned around and just whacked you. The most penalty minutes in my whole league in hockey. So I worked very long to control my temper. I'm a Kayan. I worked very long. My Rabbi taught me how to take that temper, that emotion, and use it instead for pity, and like look at that person who's screaming and yelling and carrying on, and instead of getting angry at them when they insult you, just say nebuch on them, that they don't know how to have a relationship, or they don't know how to control themselves, they don't know how to say the right thing. So you cannot get rid of an emotion. When someone says something to you, you're either going to be angry, you're going to maybe be able to control your anger, but you can't say I didn't feel anything. So my Rebbe taught me how to take an emotion and to change it. In other words, the emotion is there, but to take it from anger and it's more like pity. It's not a subconscious pity, it's a conscious pity. In other words, this guy's yelling at you, he's out of control, the teacher's yelling at you, whoever it is embarrassing you, and you're thinking, Nebuch, look at this person, a normal human being is acting on normal. I have to go say Tehillim for them, give me your Hebrew name, and of course that aggravates them much more. When you say, like, what's your Hebrew name and your mother's name? They're like, what do you need to know? I want to daven for you. I feel very bad that you're so upset. Right? Baruch Hashem, I have pretty much perfected it. I worked a very, very long time. What I felt when I was watching this kid and this rabbi, I felt the blood in the back of my neck going up. Like, this kid is not going to do this in shul, in front of everyone, in front of Aron HaKodesh. Not as long as I'm here. This is my God. This is a place of prayer. You're not going to stand in front of my God's Aron HaKodesh on a cell phone talking to your friends in the middle of prayers. This is just not going to happen. So I started to move towards this guy. But as I'm moving, I have to cleanse myself and say, you are not doing this because it's about you, because he's bothering you. You are doing this because it bothers you what he's doing in front of Hashem. And before you even start this, what's going to be this fist fight, you need to know that you're not doing this, that it's about you. Otherwise, you're not allowed to do it. If it's about you, you're not allowed to do it. So I got that out of my system. I said, if it's about me, I can handle it. But he's not doing this to my God. No way. So I walked over to this kid, and he was on his phone, and I was behind him. And I just grabbed the phone out of his hand. He wasn't ready for it. He was facing forward, and I took it, and I just tossed it across the shul. So he turned around, and I knew what was going to happen, because I saw what kind of guy this was. He turned around, he said, what did you just do? And he just punched me one in the face. Okay, now I have to say that it was the first time I ever got punched in my face, that I didn't continue punching that person until there was blood on the floor. It was like you can control yourself, and you can learn to control yourself, and you can have a Rabbi, and you can work on it, and you can go to anger management, and you can do everything you want, and everything works. But when someone slaps you in the face, the Gemara says that. If someone you're not allowed to ever slap a person in the face. You're not allowed to slap your kids in your face, a teacher. You're never allowed to slap someone, because when you slap someone in the face, you trigger something that you could punch someone in the stomach, in the back, wherever you want. You slap someone in their face, you trigger an anger and an embarrassment that doesn't exist any other part of the body. So here's this guy just punched me in the face. And I'm looking at this guy, and my fist is already closed, and I know how to fight. That's what I did as a kid all the time. And I'm like, I see his jaw, and I'm like, in about 3 seconds, that jaw is going to be broken. Because he wasn't ready for Rabbi Wallerstein. He's going to punch someone in shul. Like, he wasn't ready for that. There was no question. I had everything, my mind, it's something I had from playing hockey all my life. It's a reaction. It's not a thought process. You hit me, I hit you back in 1 second, and I know exactly where to hit you, that you're not going to get up again. So I matured way beyond anything that I ever thought I matured. I didn't know myself, and I held my hand down. I didn't swing. I took the hit. I know how to take a hit. The whole shul was watching this. They were like, "Oh my God, he hit Rabbi Wallerstein," right? And I stood back, and he was like, they were holding him and they were holding me, and I was like, you don't need to hold me. I'm not hitting him. You don't have to hold me. You can let go. I'm not hitting him. And the shul was like in shock that I didn't swing back. Did not even knowing who I was. I just took a hit in front of the whole shul. And they walked him out. They were screaming out, whatever. They walked him out. And he was in my face for another second. And it wouldn't have lasted. I said, you need to get out of here now, because I can only control myself so long. And he's mouthing off the whole thing. And they threw him out of shul, and he's gone, or whatever it is. And I went back to the beam, and I continued mincha. Like nothing happened. And I finished mincha, and everyone came, "Oh, I can't believe, how'd you control yourself? Guy hit you in the face, this and that. You know what? Now you're going to be in trouble in the streets, because you have this tough name in the streets. Now all the kids in the streets say, hey, you can hit Wallerstein, he doesn't hit back, you know?" And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I just ruined my whole name in the streets, you know? I'm not the tough guy anymore. And I'm going this whole thing, and Baruch Hashem, all I can tell you is that after mincha, I sat down, whatever it was. I waited till the second mincha was over, and I went up to Aron HaKodesh, and I went over to the Paroiches, and I gave it a kiss, and I said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just want you to know, I did this for you. Not for me, but for you. I took a punch for you. And I never in my life ever took a punch from anybody, for anybody. But I just took a punch for you. Thank you for letting me not punch back. Because had I punched back, I couldn't say that. I didn't take a punch for you, I punched him back. I took a punch, I didn't punch back for you. Am I trying to tell you a story to show off? No. What I'm trying to tell you is there's a vayar. There's a certain look. There's a certain look when you see something that someone is doing against our God, and you have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're just not going to sit there and cry, but you're going to react, and you're going to make a change. Avraham Avinu had that vayar vayaratz. He ran l'krosam, to meet them. Sometimes, when you have that look, the reaction is to go meet that person, and to go help that person, and to go love that person. Sometimes, Pinchas' vayar was he went looking for a spear, because this could not continue. So, a person has to have the ability to have both looks, to know when to love and know when to act. And this generation that we're living in right now doesn't know how to have both. It doesn't know how to have both. It's either one way, it's either vayikach reimach b'yadai, it's the spear, or it's the vayaretz l'krosam. But it doesn't work, and that's why we are where we are today. You need to have both. The Rambam says, to bring up children, to be a Rebbe, to whatever you do, you have to do two things. You have to hug them, and you have to hit them. It doesn't mean physically hit them. It means you got to tell them where it's at. You can't keep telling them, it's okay, it's all right, Shefla. It's going to be all right. Don't worry about it. Everything's good. You're my tzaddik. I had a friend, He called his son, his son was the biggest bum. He did whatever you could imagine wrong that a person could do, the biggest mechutzav, and he went around calling him tzadikal. Tzadikal? Tzadikal? I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you calling him tzadikal? You're not helping him. Tell him, you're not a tzadikal. You used to be a tzadikal. This is not how a tzadikal acts. Tell him where it's at. No, you have to be nice. Twisted parenting. You have to let them do whatever they want. If they want to wear the wrong clothing, then mommy, tati, you have to get dressed like they are and put on the wrong clothing. If they want to go to the wrong movies, you have to go with them. Yeah, there are books. There's a book, a very hot book right now. There's a whole movement of that's how we need to do chinuch. Because kids, you have to do, your kid smoking pot, smoke with them. At least that way, you know he's not buying bad pot. Right? This is what I'm told. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, it may work out for the parents who want to smoke pot, but so there's both. And the Torah tells us there has to be a balance. You're not being a nice person when someone has a dislocated shoulder bone and it's extremely excruciating pain to pop back a dislocated shoulder. Crazy pain for that second when it pops in. Starves. But it's 1 second and then the person's arm is back in. They don't need surgery. They don't need anything. They don't need a cast. They don't need nothing. You just have to rotate their arm till it pops in. They're screaming till they try to knock your head off. It hurts so much. Once it pops in, they're fine. You think it's a chesed if you say, oh my God, it hurts to pop in. I'm not popping it in for you. So the person grows up like this. So you think you did them a favor? They can never play piano or draw or play a musical instrument. You destroyed them. You didn't do anything good for them. So there has to be a time where you have to tell the person, you're not good. You're not doing the right thing. It's not going to work this way. And then there's a time we have to tell them, I love you. And because I love you, I'm telling you this. Now, this generation is either you kill them, you throw them out of school because they looked at the wrong thing, or no matter what you do, we're there for you. No. My house, 11:30, is the time that we go to sleep. You can't walk into my house at 4 o'clock. Even though you're my daughter and I love you, I run a household. A household, 4 o'clock, is not open to you. So do I love you? Absolutely. If you're home by 11:30, am I going to make your bed for you and have a hot tea waiting on the table? Absolutely. But if you're going to come here at 4 o'clock, the door's going to be locked. Oh my God, at Wallerstein, how could you be in Kiruv? How could you say that? And the answer is, who are you helping? By telling them they can come in any time. You know what happened? They're going to starve to death. You know why? Because every restaurant that says closed at 11, they're going to show up at 1. And they're going to be upset. What do you mean they're closed? My mother told me to be home at 11, or she's going to close the door. At 4 o'clock, when I came home, she let me in. So the restaurant, if I'm here 2 hours late, even though they closed, how come they're not letting me in? Because they're all home sleeping, darling. But we're teaching them at home. So you say 11, they come home at 3, no problem. So they're going to come to work, and they get a job, and they have to be there at 9. They're going to show up at 11:30. And all of a sudden, the boss is going to say, you're fired. And you're going to say, what do you mean? I always came home 2.5 hours later than I said. So I come to work 2.5 hours. So you think you did them a favor? What are you teaching them? Irresponsibility. That is Vayar. Pinchas saw over here is not a time to talk. Over here is a time for action. There are 24,000 Jews dying. Crying is not stopping them from dying. We got to do something. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, somebody finally saw what needed to be done. But Kana is Kenasi. Heshiv is Chamasi. He stopped my anger by taking this action. He didn't cause me more anger. That's what a person has to be able to see. But in order to see, and I say this all the time, you and Pinchas had to do this. In order to see someone else correctly, you have to remove yourself from in front of yourself. You have to first make sure that your reaction is not about you. He's bothering me. Because that you can be Michael and that you should be Michael. But is he bothering HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He's doing something. It's not about me. He didn't bother, that kid wasn't bothering me. He was on the phone. If he would have been in the gym on the phone, it would have been fine. If he would have been in the street on the phone, it would have been fine. It wasn't the phone and me. It wasn't a problem with me. He's not davening to me. It was a problem that I'm in shul. And you're standing in front of the Parashat, in front of a God, and you're doing this. You're disgracing my God. No. You're not. Your phone is going to fly across the shore. You're not going to do that. But until I could not do that, I could not throw the phone if it was, well, you're standing next to me and I can't daven because you're on the phone. Then it's about me. It's not about Hashem. He's disturbing me. He's making noise. That's not what happened there. And the reward for Pinchas was that he became Eliyahu Navi. Now, it's a little deeper than that. So it says that Pinchas was a Gilgal. Pinchas was a Gilgal of Nadav and Avihu. What is a Gilgal? A Gilgal is the soul that reincarnates in a person. In the 40th chapter of the Kabbah Yashar, which is a very Kabbalistic sefer, he explains that there are two types of Gilgulim. There is that a person dies and he leaves this world and he didn't accomplish what he needed to, so he has to be born again. So he comes back, he's got to go through the whole birthing situation, the whole 9 months, then he's got to come into the world, and maybe he's going to end up doing worse than he did before. So he's going to come back with a suitcase more Averis than he came before. So the whole thing is a gamble. There's no guarantee. Unless he comes down as a Down syndrome child or an autistic child that can't do a sin. So that's the neshama of a tzaddik, because he comes down to this world and he cannot come back worse than the way he came, because he's not responsible for sins, and he only does his time here and he comes back, and that's why all the tzaddikim used to get up for these children. But if a person comes back as a Gilgal, so you come back, and that's why sometimes you recognize people that you never met before, and that neshama had to come back to the world, and it's very hard, because then the person has to die, and then they got to be in their grave again, and they got to go through the whole business again. It's very, very hard. And that's if they're lucky enough to come down as a human. But there's another Gilgal called an Ibor. An Ibor means that while a person is alive, you're alive, you have a soul. You come down with a soul. While you're alive, another soul, not a dibuk, but another soul, can come into your body and live along with your soul and fix what it needs to. It sort of uses you as a vehicle to fix what it needs to do, and then it goes back to its place in Gan Eden, and it's done. And it doesn't have to be born, and it doesn't have to live a whole life, and it doesn't die, and it doesn't go through the grave, it doesn't go through any of that stuff. That Gilgal in Kabbalah is called an Ibor, because an Ibor is when you're pregnant, right, with a child, you don't see the child, you see the shape, but you don't see the child itself. It's hidden in the mother's womb. This neshama is also hidden. It's together with the other neshama, but you don't know about it. You might feel a little bit different. You might feel at certain points in your life that you're interested in things that you weren't before, and that your personality changed a little bit, right? You might feel a little bit that you're carrying this other soul, but this other soul in Gilgal, it's much easier for that soul. It does what it has to do, and it gets out of here. And then the person lives out the rest of their life. Nadav v'Avihu, who were Aaron's two sons who died, they came into Pinchas as an Ibor. When did they come into Pinchas' body? When Pinchas killed Zimri, so the whole Shevet Shimon attacked Pinchas. At that point, he thought that he was definitely going to die, and Yatzasa Nishmasa, his neshama left him. When his neshama left him, when it came back, it came along back with these two souls of Nadav and Avihu. Now, Nadav and Avihu were the two sons of Aaron who got killed. And how did they get killed? A fire came from Shemayim, as we learned in Pashas, by Pasha Shmini, and it killed the two of them. Why did they get killed? So the Gemara says there's four reasons. Four different reasons. One, they didn't want to get married to have any children, because they were so holy, they didn't want to be tamei ever. So they never got married, which was wrong. One other reason was that they passed in the halacha in front of their Rebbe, in front of Moshe Rabbeinu, which you're not allowed to do. Another reason is that they drank wine, because they wanted to get to a very high level of simcha, and a Kohen is not allowed to drink wine, because what you're saying to God is that I need wine to get to the level of being happy about doing your avodah. So it's an insult. It's the greatest insult. What do you mean? You can't be happy for me without wine? Baruch Hashem, by my daughter's wedding, she just got married a few weeks ago, so I didn't allow any alcohol at the wedding. Zero alcohol. The bars were no alcohol. So, and it was, Baruch Hashem, an amazing wedding. The comment that I made to most of the young guys that came up, you said, I've never been at such a wedding, this was crazy, and it really was crazy. I said to them, you see, you danced the whole night. You're jumping like crazy guys. You're sweating, you danced the whole night without drinking alcohol. You can be happy for someone else without alcohol. And if the only way that you can dance at my wedding, you're my friend, and the only way you can dance at my wedding is if you're blitzed and you're drunk, that means you don't like me. You're not dancing for me, you're dancing for the bottle that you just drank. So a person who's happy for another person, you don't need to drink. So a Kohen who drinks to get to the level of being in love with Hashem, it's the biggest insult to Hashem. What do you mean? If you don't drink, you can't be happy you can't be happy with me? So they were punished that they were killed. But that's not what the Torah tells us. The Torah tells us that the reason they were killed was that they brought a strange fire. I want to read this to you because it's very, very amazing. What happened was like this. The grand opening of the Mishkan, which was like the temple, the Beis HaMikdash. So everything was set, and Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron that I will send a fire from heaven down to earth onto the Mizbeach, onto the altar. Do not light a fire on the Mizbeach. I'm going to start the whole thing, and the fire that should start the opening of the Beis HaMikdash, of the Mishkan, shouldn't be a man-made fire. It should be a fire from God. So Hashem said, get everything set, I will send down the fire. What happened? The fire did not come when they thought it was going to come. So what happened? So these two, Nadav and Avihu, decided, oh my gosh, it's a big disgrace to Hashem. We're going to go light our own fire so that the Jews don't get antsy waiting and saying, oh look, Hashem can't make a fire. So they went, they brought their own fire, which was the biggest chilul Hashem. So that means, oh God, you can't make a fire, so we're going to make a fire. So it says the following in the pasuk. It says, Vayichu b'nei Aaron, Nadav v'Avihu ishmach tasai. The Nadav v'Avihu, the sons of Aaron, took their pans. Vayinu behen eish, they put fire in it, man-made fire. Vayisimu olav ketores, and they put on its spices. Vayigrilu b'nei Hashem, eish zara. And they brought a strange fire in front of God. Hashem did not command them for this fire. So what was their punishment? A fire came out from Hashem. It ate them, it killed them. And they died in front of Hashem. So what did they do here? Very, very important. What did they do here? They went ahead and they made a decision that we want to make a Kiddush Hashem. Everybody's standing and waiting for this big fire coming from heaven. The fire is not coming from heaven. The Jewish people are getting antsy. They're going to start saying, God can't send down a fire. We're going to bring a fire. Hashem didn't ask you to do that. Don't make your own decisions on how to serve Hashem, which a lot of us do. I'm a good Jew. I don't have to eat kosher. I don't have to do that. I don't do that. I'm a good Jew. You know, you hear that all the time. What does it mean to be a good Jew? I know what it means to be a good Jew. It has nothing to do with mitzvahs and tzitzis and all this stuff. I'm a good Jew. I help people. I give charity. Hashem, don't. When I tell you, I give you 613 mitzvahs, don't tell me what's the right thing, what's the wrong thing. So over here, they wanted to do the right thing. The biggest chilul Hashem, because the Jews said, aha, look, they had to light the fire. Hashem couldn't light the fire. So this became a huge chilul Hashem. They died very young. They were greater than Moshe and Aaron. They died very, very young. So now, what happens? They got to come back and fix this. They made a huge chilul Hashem. So who do we send them back to? Who's going to carry these holy two souls? We have to find someone that's going to carry that. So where are we going to look for someone to fix the chilul Hashem that they made? We're going to find somebody who, instead of disgracing Hashem, did the opposite. Who was that? Pinchas. What did Pinchas do over here? He got up, and he stood up, and he killed Zimri. Why? Because Zimri was making a chilul Hashem. Hashem said, aha! We have someone on this world that's willing to give up his life to honor my name. This is the man to send these two souls into. So the two souls of Nadav and Avihu were put into Pinchas. Pinchas, says the Gemara, ze Eliyahu. Pinchas became Eliyahu Hanavi. Now, let's take a look. Now, he didn't fix what Nadav and Avihu did yet. Now he's carrying their souls. Now he's got to fix what they did. Now, to fix what you did wrong, is to be put in the same position the same position you were last time, and you have to have the ability to be in the same position and not to fall the way you did last time. So what happened, and this is the end of the shir, and it's very, very fascinating, because every single person has a chance to come. You don't want to come back, chas v'shalom, but every single person has a chance to be misakein what he did wrong last time. So what's the famous story with Eliyahu Hanavi? I mean, we always say about Eliyahu Hanavi, we have songs about Eliyahu Hanavi, Motzei Shabbos we sing about Eliyahu Hanavi. What's the most famous story of Eliyahu Hanavi? So the most famous story of Eliyahu Hanavi is like this, and in the story is a very important lesson. And the story was like this. Eliyahu Hanavi was the only prophet, Jewish prophet, that was real in his time. But at the same time, there were 450 false prophets that served the idol, Baal, which was the worst of Avodah Zarah, and there were 400 not real prophets that served the Asherah. The Asherah was a tree. So there were 850 Jewish false prophets. There was a miserable queen named Jezebel, who was married to a Russia named Achav, and the whole Klal Yisrael was messed up. What were they doing? They were going to shul. They were keeping Shabbos. They were eating kosher. But at the same time, they were serving the Baal. They were serving Avodah Zarah. So they did everything right, but they had Facebook. They had the internet. They had their Avodah Zarah, so to say. But everything else they were doing okay. Kept kosher. They ate kosher. They davened. They went to shul. They had cholent. They had kugel. They had minyanim. They had whatever you needed. The women covered their knees. They covered their heads. But they served idols. You can't serve idols. So Eliyahu Hanavi wasn't getting anywhere. Because you know what? When people think they're doing the right thing, you can't fix them. When they knew they did something wrong, right? If they know they do something wrong, then you could talk to them. But if they think they're doing the right thing, so maybe it was worse that they were keeping all the other mitzvahs. So like, okay, I do so much good, so I do this, so I bow down to an idol. It's not the end of the world. So Eliyahu Hanavi couldn't get anywhere with them. So finally he said, you know what? It's time for a showdown. You can't have your Tehillim in your room, girls, when you go to sleep at night, next to your computer, which has Facebook on it. It doesn't go. It's either Tehillim or Facebook. You can't be a Tehillim sayer and a Facebook person. It doesn't go. So Eliyahu Hanavi said, listen, this is not going anywhere. You're going to have to make a decision. Tehillim or Facebook? What's going to be next to your bed? They both can't be next to your bed. You're going to have to make a decision. He forced them to make a decision. So he went to Achav, the king. He said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to the top of Mount Carmel in Haifa, in Eretz Yisrael. And we're going to build your Nevi'im, your prophets, they're going to build a Mizbeach, an altar. And you're going to take a cow and you're going to chop him into pieces, and you're going to put him on a piece of wood, and you're going to have your Mizbeach with your 850 false prophets. I'm going to be on the other side. I'm going to build a Mizbeach, I'm going to put wood on it, and I'm going to chop up an animal. You guys, you 850 guys, and the whole Jewish nation is going to watch. You 850 guys, you scream to your Avodah Zarah in Shemayim, to Baal, that he should send down a fire. And I will scream to my Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, that he should send down a fire. And we'll see who sends down a fire. If your God is real, he'll send down a fire. If my God is real, he'll send down a fire. So the Nevi'ei Baal agreed. Everybody said, aha. If they agreed, means that it's really true. Because if you know it's false, then the showdown you're going to lose. What did they do? They built the Mizbeach at night. And it was hollow. And they put one of their prophets in the Mizbeach with fire. And they said, when we call out to Shemayim that a fire should come down from heaven, you light the fire from underneath. And we'll fool everybody, because they knew that the God that they were, Baal didn't exist. There was no God Baal. So they had this whole plan. That night, they did it. He went inside. They built the Mizbeach around him. And he was inside with his torches, with everything that he needed. And Hashem sent a snake. And the snake came and it bit him and killed him. But the guys outside, they didn't know that. Eliyahu Hanavi didn't know it either. But Kadosh Baruch Hu took care of this guy on the inside. Now listen to what happens in the story. So, it's the following. I'm going to get to the point. So they went to Har Carmel. Neviah Habal Abba Meos Chamish, there were 450. Neviah Asher, there were 400. V'yishlach Achav Kol Bnei Yisrael. Achav sent all the Jews should come watch this. V'yisrael said Leviim Har Carmel, and he gathered all the prophets to Har Carmel. V'yigash Eliyahu Kol Ha'am. This is the big one. And Eliyahu said to the whole nation, he got up to speak, and he said the following. Vayayim, and he said, Ad Mosai Atem Poischin Al Shtei Hasiifim. He said, how long are you going to, the Lashon he uses, go limping between two opinions? You can't play both games, he said. It's either Tehillim or it's internet. It's either Tehillim or a DVD. You can't have both of them next to your bed. He said, stop playing both. So you know what he said. You can't play both. The first time anybody ever spoke like this. And he said the following. Im Hashem Elokim, if God, Hashem is your God, L'chu Acharov, then go follow him. Il Habal, and if Baal is your God, L'chu Acharov, go after him. But don't go after both at the same time. It's the first time in the Torah that anybody ever spoke like this. And a lot of people today would argue this in Kiruv. So the guy put on tefillin. So he's doing every Aveira in the world. At least he put on tefillin. You're going to tell him not to put on tefillin? At least he put on tefillin. Eliyahu and Navi got up and said, it's not working. Because if he puts on tefillin, I had one of my students who I haven't seen in 15 years was by my shir last night. And after the shir, he came over to me, and everything in his life is going wrong. Everything that could be going wrong is going wrong. And he wants to see a big makubal right away. That's what he said. Rabbi Wallerstein, you need to connect me right away. Everything I'm touching now is going wrong. I said, do you keep Shabbos? No. I'm like, so why are we going to a makubal? Like, keep Shabbos, then maybe things will go right. No, that's much too hard. Just get me to one of your rabbis, one of your spooks. That's what he told me. I said, it's not the way it works. If you keep Shabbos, and you keep everything, and you're doing everything, and things are going wrong, and you want to go to a tzaddik, fine, but you're not even keeping Shabbos, so maybe keep Shabbos and for 4 weeks, and we'll see if things get better. Right? He said, but I put on tefillin every day, Rebbe. Every day, Lubavitch comes and puts on tefillin in my store. I'm like, that's great, but you know what? You're not keeping Shabbos. You can't expect any mazel from Hashem. That's what he was saying over here. It's very nice what you're doing, but make up your mind. Which way are you going? You can't have both. Yesterday, I got a call from a girl out of state. Sometimes I pick up the phone, sometimes I don't. For some reason, I picked up this phone call. Hi, Rabbi Wallerstein. Hi, I listen to your tapes. Okay. She goes, I'm an 11th grader. I talk to Hashem. I ask him for things. He doesn't answer me. I feel very disconnected from him. And my teachers get up and they try to brainwash me. She's in a very religious school. And they tell me all these things about God and all this stuff and connections and love and fear. She says, I try to connect. I am so disconnected. I don't believe in any of this anymore. So Wallerstein, help me. I'm like, abracadabra. Like, what? Hello? Like, what exactly am I supposed to, what, like? She said, no, you have to help me. Let's do Shurim. You have to help me. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so, one of these phones is jumping. I don't know if it's a, so I said to her, you watch movies? Yeah. You watch movies that are not so clean? Yeah. You talk to boys? Once in a while. Are you very strict about what you eat? Not always. I'm like, hello? I said, I just went on a diet. I want to lose weight. I have a nutritionist. So she told me, can't eat after 6 o'clock. Everything you eat, you have to eat till 6 o'clock. After 6 o'clock, if you want, you get half an apple. Right? Because the worst thing is to go to sleep on carbs and all this other stuff. you wake up very hungry, and that's when your body doesn't process at night because you're laying, you're not moving. I got the whole speech, right? I said, let me tell you a story. So there I am, sitting in my bed, about to go to sleep. And I call up my nutritionist, and I'm like, hi, listen, I got a wedding coming up. I got to fit into the suit. I got to lose 20 pounds in the next 3-4 weeks. She says, so? And I'm like, okay, so help me. She says, I told you. You're calling me, it's 9:30. Did you eat your half an apple? I'm like, no. I just finished 2 bags of Wise potato chips and a huge piece of 7-layer cake and a chocolate parva ice cream. And she's like, we don't really have anything to discuss, Mr. Wallerstein. What do you mean? What kind of nutritionist are you? I tell you I want to lose weight. What do you mean? What do you mean you don't want to talk to me? She said, I can't talk to you. What are we talking about? You're eating ice cream, 7-layer cake, 2 bags of potato chips, the worst trans oil, sugar, the worst stuff you can put into your body before you go to sleep, and you want to lose 20 pounds? Call me when you're ready to do what you got to do. I said to this girl, that's what Hashem's telling you. Exactly. He's a nutritionist. And he gives you 613 mitzvahs. And he's telling you how to connect to him, how to grow spiritually, how to get to be able to feel that you and him have a relationship. And you're sitting there, and you're saying, I don't understand. It's not working. Because you're watching DVDs, and you're talking to boys, and you're doing every avera in the world, like me talking to nutritionists. Why am I not losing weight? Because you're eating 7-layer cake before you go to sleep. I said, you are doing the same thing. You're doing every avera, you're watching a DVD before you go to sleep. The first thing you do in the morning is the wrong thing. During the day, you're doing the wrong thing, and you're like, I don't understand. I'm not connecting. He's not listening to me. You said, because if you want him to listen to you, you got to work the program. You're not willing to work the program, so what is he going to listen to you for? I want to get close to you, Hashem, but I don't want to listen to anything you have to say. Imagine trying to have a relationship with a wife. You're like, I really love you. We want to have a relationship with you. But whatever you say, I'm going to do the opposite. Hello? And then you go to therapist, marriage therapist. I don't know why this doesn't work. How come my marriage is not working? Because everything she says, you do the opposite. Yeah, but I really want it to work. So then don't do the opposite. Start listening. So this is what I explained to her. And this is what Rabbi is saying. You can't play both games. So for some reason, the Jews, at this point, said, you know what? You're right. Let's see which way we're going to go. So the test went down. Eliyahu said, you guys go first. So they went first, thinking that when they scream for the fire, this guy's going to light it. Meanwhile, he's dead. So what happens? Eliyahu says, get yourself a cow and cut him up. And call out the name of your God. But don't put a fire on. They took the cow. And they put him on the Mizbeach, and they screamed, and they called the name of their Avodah Zarah Baal from the morning until late afternoon. Halem is saying, Baal, answer us. There was nothing, no voice, nothing. And it became late afternoon, and Eliyahu made fun of them. When he said, it's not working. You know why he's not working? Kiru b'kol gadol. You got to yell louder. Kilakemhu, because you're God, right? He can't hear. Maybe he said to them, Ulai, maybe, Yashenu. He's sleeping. So if you let, he says, he may be sleeping. So yell louder, like Yikatz. You'll wake him up. Another very important lesson. I wish I had much more time tonight. This is an unbelievable story of Eliyahu. So at this point, they realize the guy in the Mizbeach is dead. Because they keep calling him, and he's not lighting the fire. So they know it ain't happening, because they know there's no God called Baal. So at this point, they should have said, okay, the game is up. You're right. So Eliyahu tells them, yell louder, maybe you'll wake him up. So they should have said, ha, ha, ha. You can't wake him up, he doesn't exist. But what happens, girls, ladies, is that when you live a lie, you end up believing it. So even though they knew in their hearts that there was no such thing as Baal, because they were Nevi'ei Baal, and their whole life they were saying, there's a Baal, there's a Baal, there's a Baal, when he said to them, he's sleeping, yell louder, they really believed that maybe he's sleeping. Even though they knew that he didn't exist. So what was their answer? He said, Yishon, who? Maybe he's sleeping, but Yikas, you'll wake him up. But Yikru Kol Gadol. They started screaming louder. The Shugam, what are you screaming louder for? You know he doesn't exist. No, you begin to believe your own lie. So they began to scream so loud, it says, At Shvach Dam Alehem, till blood started running out of their ears and their noses. They were screaming at the top of their lungs. Can you imagine? 450 Mishugam screaming at the top of their lungs, knowing that he doesn't exist. What are you screaming for? These were not stupid people. The answer is you live it so long that you believe it. You end up believing your lie to the point where you can scream at the top of your lungs your lie. They were screaming at the top of their lungs their lie. And nobody was like, yeah, maybe you'll wake them up. So at that point, he had a little bit Rahmanis on them. The blood was running out of it, or everywhere in their face. He said, okay, it's enough. I put them through enough. So he said, okay. He waited till Allah Mincha, ve'ein kol ve'ein oyne, ve'ein kashev, nothing was happening. And Eliyahu said to the whole nation, a very important lesson in Kiruv. He said, at that point, he should have said, okay, now I'm going to do mine, but no. He said, Geshu Elai. He said, come close to me. That's how you do Kiruv. He said, Geshu Elai. Okay, you lived a lie, now it's time to step away. Come close to me. So the pasuk says, if that's how you want to bring people to Hashem, what's going to be the reaction? Vayikshu kol ha'am elov. The whole nation came to him. Vayigash is a very close relationship. In other words, Vayigash elov Yehuda, when Yehuda approached Joseph, he whispered in his ear. He was that close. When you use the word Vayigash, it's not like I approach from here to the door. It's like I'm mamish, like the person's right here, and I go right up to them. So what we're teaching here is, okay, your lie is over. Now I want to bring you into the fold. So he says, I'm not going to criticize you. I'm not going to make fun of you that you follow this idiocy all this long. Come close to me. And the pasuk tells us, if you act like that, the whole nation came close there. Okay? So, Eliyahu didn't build the Mizbeach. He wanted them to see him build the Mizbeach. And he built the Mizbeach with 12 stones. Like the Shvatim. And he said, and he took the animal and on the wood and he cut it into pieces. Then he took water and he took 4 huge jars of water and he poured the water on the wood, on the animal, on the Mizbeach, on the dirt. He soaked it. So nobody should think that there was any kind of games over here. And then, it was already dusk. And Eliyahu walked up to the Mizbeach and he said, Hashem, God, Elokei Avram Yitzchak Yisrael, the God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yisrael, Hayom, today, Yuvada ki ata Elokim Yisrael. Today it will be made known, you are the God of Yisrael. V'ani avdecha, and I am your servant. U'b'devarcha, listen carefully, U'b'devarcha, here's the answer, Asisi es kol hadvarim ha'ele. And according to your word, I did this. Aneni Hashem, Aneni, answer me Hashem, answer me. V'yedom hazeh ki ata ulakim. V'atipol esh Hashem, and a fire came down. V'toichal, it ate esa'oila, the animals, it ate some of the wood. Ha'avanim, it ate the stones. Ha'afal, the dirt. Hamayim, the water. A fire came from Shemayim, it ate the whole thing up. And the nation saw this. They fell on their face. And they said, Hashem Elokim, that we say at the end of Ne'ilah, we say 7 times, it comes from here. Hashem Elokim, Hashem is our God. Hashem Elokim, Hashem is our God. And they followed Eliyahu Navi. Why did I specifically say, why did it say, Uvidvarcha Asisi? I did according to your words. Why do you have to say that? Of course, Hashem told them to do it. Why do you have to tell it to Klal Yisrael? That was the tikkun. That was the tikkun. At this point, to fix what Nadav Avihu did. Nadav Avihu wanted to make a Kiddush Hashem, but they didn't listen to what Hashem told them. Hashem said, do not put a fire, wait. You must wait. They didn't want to wait. They didn't listen to Hashem. Now, there was a chance to do it again. So what did Eliyahu Hanavi do? He waited the whole day till dusk. He let the Nevi'ei Habal, he could have done it right away. He could have been the first one. Said, fire come out of Shemayim, and it would have been done. That wouldn't have fixed what they did. They didn't have patience. They didn't want to wait. So he had to wait. Because he had to fix what Nadav Avihu did. So he waited a whole day. And he didn't put a fire on. He waited, and what happened? What was the tikkun? He waited and he made a Kiddush Hashem by allowing Hashem to send down the fire. What was the Chil Hashem? The Chil Hashem that Nadav Avihu did, that they died early, was they didn't wait for the fire of Hashem. They lit their own fire. What did Eliyahu Hanavi do? He waited for the fire of Hashem. He fixed what they did wrong. And therefore, he announced specifically, U'b'devarcha asisi. Hashem, I fixed it. I did what you said to do, not what they did last time. They did what they wanted to do. So he said, U'b'devarcha, everything I did was according to your word. I waited. I fixed what they did wrong. And right after that, it says that the two neshamas of Nadav and Avihu, since they were in Ibur, there was this neshama that came in the middle of life. They left him, and they went back to their place in Gan Eden. And the proof of that is that it says much, much later that when he left alone. He left alone. What does that mean, that he left alone? That he was back to just his neshama. He no longer had the neshamas of Nadav and Avihu. And it says he went down his level because he was no longer had neshama. So the lesson of this whole story, which is an amazing, the whole story of Eliyahu Hanavi. I mean, I said it very fast, but every pasuk, it's an amazing story. The lesson of the story here is that Eliyahu Hanavi said, you can't play both sides of the coin. He said to Klal Yisrael, either you're a Baal man or you're a God man. You can't be a Baal and a God man. It doesn't work. And therefore you have to take a side. One of the two sides, you have to step onto one of those two sides. It doesn't work. There's so many kids, there's so many people that are trying to weave the two of them together. It doesn't work. You can't play both sides of it. You can't say, Rebbe, take me to a Makubal when you're Machal Shabbos. Makubal can't help you. Unless he's a fake Makubal or whatever, he's doing it for money. But a Kaddish man can't help you. The tzaddikim didn't take money from people who were Machal Shabbos. Do you know that? They wouldn't take money for the yeshivas. They would ask. A guy would come in with $1 million. I know. I sat by Rabbi Yashiv when a Rosh Hashiva came. I haven't have been there. And this non-Jewish man who made his money not in a very nice way gave $1 million to this guy's yeshiva. $1 million. And he asked Rabbi Yashiv if he could take it. And Rabbi Yashiv said no. No, you can't take it. You can't have your base medrash and your shul built from money that's not kosher, or from a Machal Shabbos. You can't. You can't play both sides of the game. You can't. It doesn't work. And that's what Eliyahu Hanavi said here. And in the end, he had Klal Yisrael. They talked about Yigash Elov. They came to him, and for a while, he ended up killing all those Nevi'im, those false Nevi'im. And then Achav went chasing him into the mountains, whatever it was. But for a while, the Jews were on the right path. And I think each one of us, we need to know that. And we need to be able to have that vayar. That vayar that Pinchas had. If it bothers you, don't just sit there and cry. I went to raise money for the dinner that I just had to help Arnav and everything that I do. And I did a little video of some of my girls talking about the terrible things that they have gone through privately in life. And I asked them permission if I could show this video to certain people who don't come from New York, California, wherever I was, to try to raise money. I mamish saw the difference between the two vayars. You don't know how many husbands and wives watched the video with me and cried and said, oh my God, what these poor girls have gone through in life. I didn't know that this exists in the Jewish world. They were in such shock. They didn't do anything for me. They were like, this is unbelievable and you need to be helped. And I walked out of the house with nothing. Nothing. So many times, or with very little. Very few saw that video and said, Rabbi Wallerstein, I don't have money, but I want to help these girls. You want a parlor meeting? You want my house to be open to them? You want a Shabbaton? Whatever I can do, I want to do for these girls. The other people saw it and said, oh my God, there were women that were watching this that were crying. I figured I'm going to get $500,000 in that house. They were crying at the table. I was like, oh my God, am I going to get a check? I'm not going to have to raise money anymore. And she was like beyond herself. And her husband, and he, guys, they tried to, but he was also crying. I was like, wow. And I spent 3.5 hours, because anyone who's rich has shitas. When you get rich, then you have what we call shitas. It means, I don't know how to say that in English, but like what I think. So I will go to people, and I had to listen to 3.5 hours how they would do it. When you're rich, you have a right to say how you would do it. So I would sit there for 3.5 hours, listening to how they would do it, if they would do it. But in the end, I got a lot of advice. You go for money, you get advice. You want advice, you got to pay money. That's the way it works in this world, right? But I saw the differences between the vayars. There were certain people who saw this video, and they said, I will not sleep until I make a change in the Jewish world, a change for these girls. I want to help these girls. And there were people, and they called me the next day, like, Rabbi Wallerstein, I can do this for you, I can do that for you. That's the vayar that Pinchas had. And then there's the people who sit there and cry. And meanwhile, 24,000 people are dying. And girls are being abused, and girls are going through hell, and they're just crying, and people are crying, this is terrible. And you can read the Bishpacha, and you can read the Bina, and you can read all these things with everybody writing terrible editorials, and we're suffering, and everyone's like, oh my God, did you read that article in the Bishpacha? I couldn't sleep a whole Shabbos. It's terrible. And we have to do something about it. And there's some great organizations out there, I'm sure, going to help them. Hello? That's not what it's about. You got to react. You got to stop it from happening. You got to stop putting it under the carpet. You got to become a Pinchas. This week's Parashat. You have to become a Pinchas. Pinchas ze Eliyahu. Brisi Shalom. A person who stands up for Hashem and stands up for Hashem's children, even if their name and their life, and people are going to make fun of them, people are going to say, who are you to do this, and what do you think you are, and all that. It doesn't matter. It's Hashem's daughter. I'll do whatever I have to do. I'll take a spear. I'll do whatever I have to do. It's Hashem's kid you're messing with? It's Hashem's daughter you're messing with? Nobody messes with my sister. Nobody messes with Hashem's daughter. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. Instead of sitting there and saying, this is terrible. This is an outbreak. This is beyond, I don't know what to do. I'm going to sit and cry. That's not what stopped. That's not what stopped this terrible plague, and that's not what's going to stop the plague that Klal Yisrael is going through right now. Not editorials, not mishpacha, not people writing all these things in the magazines and all this everybody's reading. It's not going to do anything. It's bringing awareness. Awareness means nothing. Awareness does nothing. Awareness means there's 100,000, 1 million people. Vayar, 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 vayar. They're all looking. They're all seeing. But there was only one Pinchas, vayikach roimach b'yadai. And every girl in this room, and everyone's watching this on Torah anytime, you need to be that Pinchas. You need to vayikach roimach b'yadai. You need to get up from the Eidah, from everybody else that's just, wow, did you see what I just saw? Vayikach roimach b'yadai. And you have to take your amach evarim. You have to take your body and your soul and put it on the line to stop the Magefa. And that's what each one of us needs to do. Or else, you can just stand there and cry. It does nothing. So in the schus of, and it's not just a man's job, it's a woman's job. You see something, you see a girl being abused, you see anything going on, you need to stand up. You need to tell somebody. You need to do something. Not say, oh my gosh, I met this girl, I feel so bad for her. What does that mean? What does that do? That was the whole Klal Yisrael standing. Moshe Rabbeinu felt bad. They did nothing. You have to do something about it. And every single person in this room can do something about it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says the reward is life forever. And the reward, if we all do something about it, will be that we meet Hashem, Eliyahu Navi, who's Pinchas, we'll see him b'karev. Tzlacha.